Hi, you guys. Welcome to week 8. This is halfway through the semester in terms of content, so that's exciting. Congratulations. Week eight's topic is touch, and the study of touch in nonverbal communication is termed haptics. Um, and obviously, you're probably picking up on this at this point, but nonverbal communication and communication in general overlaps a lot with other social sciences like psychology and sociology and anthropology, even. And touch is one of the areas that's a little bit more on the overlap zone because psychology in particular looks at touch a lot. So some people are what I would term touch averse. They don't particularly care for being touched. Other people are touchy. They like to touch others. They like to be touched. And there isn't like a right or a wrong element. A lot of it has to do with how you were socialized. A lot of it is cultural. A lot of it is just personal preference. And all of those things are totally fine. We're just going to discuss them and sort of analyze them a little bit in this chapter. We don't have an activity report in this unit because I'm not going to make you go out and touch people because that's how you get arrested. And I'm not trying to get any of you arrested. So you're welcome. Instead, this week you'll do a mid-semester course evaluation. So basically, this is just a couple of questions that allows me to sort of figure out what you like about the class, what you don't like about the class, what you like about my teaching style, what you don't like about my teaching style. And then if there are any huge gaps, I can correct them or adjust them before the semester is over and you're sort of stuck with it. How these work is they're anonymous. I get a check mark as complete or incomplete, and you'll get full points for doing it or not doing it. But I don't get to see the feedback except in aggregate form. So it'll show me everybody's answers all at once, but they're not identifiable. So do feel free to be candid. This is just really helpful for me because online classes are a little bit harder for me to design in terms of how to interact, what types of activities and assignments are going to work, what aren't, etc. So your feedback is really valuable to me on that level. So back to touch. Some of our first interactions as humans in general are touch related, right? And that means they're really related to bonding. So mothers and children, particularly mothers, but fathers as well, touch almost constantly in the first sort of couple weeks of life because babies are really bad at taking care of themselves. They're like very needy little creatures, right? So that touch sort of creates this bond, and touching creates a bond because it releases a chemical called oxytocin. And oxytocin is a bonding chemical. It's released during prolonged skin-on-skin exposure. It's released during breastfeeding. It's released during orgasm. And all of those things are made to connect individuals to one another, right? Because we are a pack animal society, and we do better as a society if we don't hermit and live alone in the wilderness. I don't know why. I mean, you could live alone in a city too, but still not good for you. And when I say not good for you, I mean that touch or lack of touch has impacts on your health. And this is something that I think a lot of us don't think about. So there is actually an optimum number of times per day that you should be touched. So in a face-to-face class, I would have you guess, but we're not in face-to-face class, so you just guess in your head right now. It's 7. So hypothetically, you should have some sort of human-to-human contact 7 times a day. And that could be a high five, it can be a handshake. It doesn't have to be like full hugs or like making out or anything like that. It can just be physical contact. And the benefits of this are that people who are touched more often have lower blood pressure, they're less likely to be obese, they're less likely to suffer from anxiety, depression, eating disorders, personality disorders. which in turn makes them less likely to commit suicide. They have lower risk for cardiovascular disease and heart attacks. They are more likely to get promoted. They're more likely to be seen as socially desirable contacts. There's all of these things, and a lot of it is related to kind of how we're set up to function. And because we are pack animals, touch plays into that a lot. It doesn't go up exponentially after 7. So if you get touched 700 times, it doesn't mean you're the most healthy person on the planet. It just means that you tapped out at 7. But good job for getting to 7. So the societal element of this is that even though we're pack animals, touch is still a fairly intimate process. We don't generally touch strangers, right? There's gender involved in this as well. So women are more likely to touch strangers. Women are more likely to touch children. Women are more likely to touch the elderly or the sick. And a lot of this has to do with women being gatekeepers of touch. And if you think about it in the most basic of contexts, this is related to sexuality, right? Because in heterosexual couples, women decide when the couple has sex. That's the idea, because they're the gatekeeper. So in order for the sex to be consensual, the woman has to decide that it's okay. And so therefore, they just in general in life have a little bit more access to touch than men do. Another part of it is kind of that socialization issue. It's usually seen as more acceptable for women to touch. This is changing as time goes on, but in the traditional sense of the word, it's still sort of there. So your book will take you through the different types of touch in terms of, like intimate touch, personal touch, functional touch, where you're likely to use each of these, etc. So I won't get into that too much now, but touch is also a way to communicate positive or negative affect. And when I say affect, I mean emotions, right? So positive affect would be like hugging somebody, like you're clearly happy to see them. You communicating that you have a close relationship. You could also punch somebody in the face. You're touching them, right? But that does not communicate a positive emotion. It communicates a negative emotion, anger. So using touch to communicate negative affect is also a thing that happens. Functional touch, something that we don't always think about is where intimate zones are, other than like the obvious like sexual areas. But your face is it's considered a really intimate zone. Like you don't let strangers touch your face. It's really creepy to let people touch your face that aren't, people that you're close to or people that you would normally let do that. So things that you might not have thought about before. People also use touch predominantly for things like self-grooming or self-soothing. So you'll notice that women will like play with their hair, or a lot of times we might like rub an arm or like, wipe sort of imaginary crumbs off things. Those are all self-soothing motions or gestures, and it's interesting to watch for. One of the cooler things about self-soothing is that it's a key to lying tells sometimes. So hypothetically, we're not all sociopaths, which means that when we lie, we feel bad about it. And so something to watch for is if people sort of cover their mouths when they talk, or like if they itch really close to, or anything, touching around the mouth or the face, can be an indication of lying, because essentially your brain doesn't like what's coming out of your mouth because it's a lie and you feel bad for lying. So it's like, shut up, right? Like, don't do this. So that's a fun thing that you can watch for in real life. But touch is really interesting, and this week you're gonna kind of think about your own use of touch and whether you are touch prone or touch averse, and think about kind of how that has impacted your relationships and your experiences growing up. So I will be in touch really soon, and if you have questions, let me know. Thanks.